Macon, Florida, growing manufacturing in the Sunshine State.
The jacket that I'm wearing is a typical work jacket. It's something that we saw at every factory that we went to when we were in Japan. Not only did we see them there, it's also a cultural statement. It's something that apparently politicians and people that are in the public eye wear when they want to appeal to the everyman, because it's so built into the culture. The people that were guiding the Shinka tour, Ari, Ichi, and Paul, they actually had these themselves. It was part of their uniform. And I noticed how sharp they were, but two, how utilitarian and how functional they really were. And so I went out to find, to a couple stores to see if I could find one. I found this one at Workman. And it's so built into that culture that Workman is a store where you can buy things for this kind.
It's not a Japanese brand, right?
It is a Japanese brand.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so they make it like westernized, the name. Yeah. Or probably it's a Japanese name too, I bet.
Yeah, but it actually was written in English characters. Or
okay.
So what I really enjoyed was this kind of goes into that whole culture of Kaizen, right? This is so functional that there are reflective elements, there are pockets for everything, there's pockets inside, there's outside, there's rooms for pen, there's rooms for everything. It purposely fits tight around the arm so it doesn't get snagged. It's abrasion resistant. It's actually fairly light. As you can see, there's a couple of light panels so it's still breathable, and it fits tightly.
Wow.
It's a perfect garment for an office, and this is something that, right, here it's hard to find. But there, it was available at a lot of different
And it looks like it's good quality too. You know?
It looks like it's very good quality, and it's recycled. So I wanted to get this not only to bring it back because I thought, one, it looked sharp, and I like to ride motorcycles, and so potentially that's what I'm using it for. But more than anything else, because I wanted to show my staff here. This is a way to visually differentiate a manager here. It's a way to...
Did you get a few of those for your managers too?
Well, I bought two. I bought two different models. They're going to be embroidered with AHT. I haven't gotten around to that quite yet, but that's what's going to be coming next. I got a white one and I got a dark one. And I'm having my marketing team actually purchase some of these because this is going to be the thing that denotes a section head from somebody else. We have had, close call incidents from people that were wearing the wrong kind of clothing or wearing the wrong kind of machines. And so this is something that also adds to the level of safety that we really strive for here.
Of course. Safety is always number one. Right?
Yeah.
And the Japanese are big on that, I bet.
Absolutely. One of the things that we learned while we were over there was point safety, which is something that it looks silly, but it kind of goes, again, into that culture.
Point safety, can you explain? Elaborate?
Of course. That's where, let's say you're crossing, you're in a large warehouse that has vehicles that's moving through it.
Yeah.
Here, what we do is we teach our children look left and look right, and then look left again. There, what they teach their factory workers is you can't just take it for granted that somebody actually sees you. Eye contact isn't enough. You have to point at the danger, point at the vehicle, and the driver of the vehicle is instructed to not go until he gets pointed at. Just the opposite. Here we would think you get point, well that means you should go on and go. But there, point means you have now been acknowledged, the pedestrian understands, you are there, you're able to proceed. It was the same thing with forklifts, and it was the same thing with crane operators.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Forklifts, I mean, like how do you see the points? It's just common sense.
Exactly.
Like you said, it's simple. But...
So the other thing was, this is, people are doing this even when there's nobody watching. Sometimes I like to think that my employees will follow the instructions that we give them all the time. Realistically, a lot of times things like these are hard to enforce, and you need to have a manager on site, and if they don't do it, then they need to be either disciplined or they need to be reminded what needs to happen. But there, everybody just does it inherently. You're walking out on the street and somebody's just walking across, and we're looking at somebody, they're completely alone across the street, and they're still doing the point safety because it's so ingrained in the behavior.
Almost in the culture, right? Since they're born, that's what they're taught from their parents. So I will dive in deeper into the Japan tours that you took just recently. But how about you just tell us a little bit about AHT, its kind of story. I believe you're second generation right now.
Yeah. So AHT started as Imogen USA back in 1993. And really the story started before that. It started with my grandfather. My grandfather in Ecuador and my grandmother. My grandfather's brother passed away. And when his brother passed away, his brother's wife was left without a job, no source of income. The rest of the family had to band together to help them pay for bills. It was an ugly situation. But as families do, they got together and they made it they made it work. But then my grandfather thought, what happens if that happens to me? What happens to my family? He had actually a prestigious job at Xerox at the time. And so because of that and the context that he decided to start a company that would do printing, Imogen.
Okay.
So that's where the name Imogen actually comes from. So that was Imogen in Ecuador. That was in the mid-'80s. Cut to the early '90s, and my family moved to the United States, and my father was looking for a name for the company that he was to start, and Imogen USA was the natural fit. So what he did was he started that, and it was just a general catch-all for the business that he wanted to do. Had no idea what it would be, but he's an entrepreneur from the get-go. So he tried delivering olives to Italian restaurants for some time. He tried selling potato chips at county fairs. He got a job, when those things failed, he got a job basically sweeping up at a factory after hours. It was a hurricane shutter factory, and that's where he got his big break. He started to learn what the industry was like, and he realized quickly that he could have his know-how, he could learn the trade, he could bring in his education, and he could do the job better than what they were doing, more efficiently. Wow. So he ended up being a repair person for them. He would repair motors, he would install those motors. And then he had a bit of a falling out with the management and decided to branch out on his own.
Wow, that so was he really started from ground, like
really started from the ground, the drill and the bucket kind of approach.
What a story!
Over time, Imogen grew, and
was it here in Fort Myers?
It was in Naples.
Okay.
So their original office was off Shirley Street in Naples. It's just a kind of little hole in the wall in the back of a garage. As time went on, it started to gain steam, right? My dad at some point referred to himself as the king of Gulf Shore Boulevard when it came to shutter repairs, because he was really controlling a large part of that market. But it was very difficult to grow because there's something that we like to refer to as regulatory capture in the hurricane shutter and hurricane protection industry. It's very expensive to develop your own system, right? Your own, it requires testing, engineering, Florida Building Code approval. It costs $80,000 to $150,000 just to have a new system prepared and approved to be installed. It's quite the expense.
And by the new system, like, do you know it's gonna sell?
You don't know, right? So you spend all this before you have, and if you have a marketing team that can help you do some kind of market analysis, that costs money.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what would happen was there were a couple big players in the market, one out of Texas, one out of the other coast on the east coast of Florida, one locally. They more or less controlled the market. And so if you were selling hurricane protection, it was their hurricane protection, right? So you had to buy from them.
Yep.
So my dad invented a new kind of hurricane protection system that was called end retention. Up until that point, everybody required something that was called storm bars.
Okay.
So when you have a roll down shutter, that shutter rolls down, and there was nothing that retained it within the tracks. The tracks were essentially guides that were just these hollow channels. And if the slats had enough pressure inward or outward, they would deflect, and then they could come out of these guides. So his big break and his big idea was, why don't we put screw bosses into these things?
Yep.
We extrude the slats rather than making them out of roll-formed coil, and now we're drilling these screws into the sides with these end retainers, and then we're going to put channels in the tracks that is actually going to keep it within the track. That eliminated the need for storm bars.
Okay.
It meant that you could have bigger and bigger openings, and they would be stronger. So he took this idea and eventually took it to other companies to see, because he didn't have the funds to pursue it. So he patented it, he took it to other companies, and was essentially turned away. That's when he decided to start AHT. So that was in 2001. 2003, AHT was started. We had our own patent. We had our own mills that we were working with. We were bringing in our own material. We started selling to the industry. Everybody started following suit. With a patent, the word is a patent's only as good as your ability to defend it. Well, he didn't have the funds to defend it, and so very quickly it became the market standard, everybody copying. And to this day, it continues to be the market standard. The patent's already expired. It's now, you see it everywhere, and it's not just in Southwest Florida, it's not just in the United States, it's actually worldwide. End retention is the standard now.
So, and you're saying it started here?
It started right here, and it started out of the necessity. Yep.
Wow.
So out of that came AHT and the development of new products. There's a company in Southwest Florida called Storm Smart, and they were really the pioneers of hurricane screens. They're huge. So one of the things that they did is they did all of their screens with a thing called Keter. We decided, rather than Keter, what's the problem with Keter? Keter is essentially a rope or a plastic thin flexible cylinder that is within some fabric. That's what's running up and down the track to provide this end retention.
Yep.
Well, that fabric frays, and over time it's going to fail. So we said, why don't instead we use ballistic nylon or zipper that's going to be practically frictionless and it's going to be far more durable. That was our design. That was our addition to the Hurricane screen market, and we decided to get our own product together and started selling that. All of this kind of comes together into what our business model is, which is a primarily B2B model.
Yep.
We don't sell a tremendous amount of products to the end user. Here in Southwest Florida, we do. We still have our retail brand, which is Imogen USA. But nationwide, we actually sell to the market.
You kept the name. You kept the name.
Yeah, we currently DBA it as AHT Shutter Services, just to simplify a little bit, because Imogen doesn't communicate to people what we needed to. But that business is still alive, and we now call it AHT Shutter Services. They do installations in Southwest Florida from Marco Island up to Sarasota. But realistically, the big workhorse for us is AHT. We're doing sales right now. We've done projects in Guam, throughout the Caribbean, down in South America. Our supply lines are from Japan, China, Turkey, most of Europe, South America. Now we're trying to condense it closer to home a little bit. We're trying to do as much nearshoring as possible to deal with the supply issues. But
yeah. So do you have any challenges with the installation? Because I guess it's not your installers all the time, right? So
they are. Actually, there are installers. So we are...
all over the world?
No, we don't install all over the world. We sell to other businesses. Very much so like... I like to compare us to an AC manufacturer. Yeah. Right? So let's say Train or any one of the other cooling manufacturers.
Or Daikin. Right?
Exactly. So they make the products, they find the dealers, they establish them, they train them, and then those dealers then go do that last mile kind of delivery and installation stuff.
Okay, so the warranty is not really...
The warranty will not go through us. We warranty the dealers.
Got it. Yeah.
So we warranty the dealers. We have a 5-year warranty with them for some things, 10 years for others.
And everything else you do your own installation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's our business model today. We continue to grow. We've grown around 300% since the end of 2018. We're projected to grow at least another 50% here over the next 2 years.
Okay.
So we're pretty excited about that. The biggest side is actually the retail and our international markets. We have another business now in Puerto Rico called PRAHT, Puerto Rico AHT. And we're using that as our hub for the Caribbean because the Caribbean market really continues to grow year after year.
Yep.
And so part of our model isn't just to stay...
It's needed.
Exactly. We have a different approach to business, right? A lot of companies are an aesthetic first kind of approach because that's what homeowners, for the most part, are looking for outside of the immediate aftermath of a hurricane. A lot of people treat it as a lifestyle product, right? I'm looking for shade, I'm looking for a little bit of privacy, etc. When that's your first approach, that's where the majority of your research and development dollars go. That's where the majority of your time and energy goes to. You want to make something look good. We're a safety first company.
We're very strong and durable. That can withstand a category 5 hurricane.
Exactly. And so we start with safety first, above and everything else. We start there, we design everything for safety, and then at the end, we polish the product. So our products aren't always going to be the most polished, and that's by design. But what they are going to do is they're going to be the strongest out there. They're going to do exactly what they say they're going to do. We're very conservative with the way we do our engineering because we also don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So we're always conservative with all of our numbers, and I'm very pleased to say, to our knowledge, we've never had a failure during a hurricane. There are issues always with installations. There could be problems with the way that it was installed or the way that it was utilized or the structural integrity of a home. But our products have a sterling reputation. It's because of the approach that we bring to how we design it and how we build them.
Nice.
Thank you.
That's a great story. I really always appreciate to hear stories. This how it started from the ground up and it's still in the family and now I guess it's getting to the third generation, I would think. It would be the third, or it's...
No, if we follow it back to my grandfather, but we've only been in the hurricane shutter industry for 30 years with my father.
But reality started all the way back then, right? So that's a fascinating story, and hopefully it's going to stay in the family for many, many more years.
Well, I hope so. One of the things that my father and I are kind of on the same page about is that we do want to keep this as a family-owned and operated business, but we want to branch out to do as many other things as we can. Right? I love new experiences. My father loves new experiences. I think we can bring our approach to a lot of different things, not necessarily just hurricane protection. My father's actually working on a glamping project right now, for example.
What?
Glamping, so glamorous camping.
Yes. That's been a trend for.
It's been a trend. So we took a fantastic vacation over the last Christmas period. We went out to Bryce Canyon and Zion National Park, and we did some glamping over there. And my father realized, wow, that can really work in this market. Not only because there's such a huge tourism industry in Florida, but also because there's a big problem right now with, especially in the middle of the state, orange groves are dying. And they're dying every year more and more. And
it's very sad. The citrus greening epidemic that's happening.
Citrus greening. And so what's going to happen to those plots of land? What's going to happen with that, with those markets? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
That's one of the opportunities that I think that we have, is that we can approach those and maybe turn it into a bit of tourism. We can reuse that land. We can convert that into something else that's useful, that isn't necessarily high density residential areas. We can turn it into something that brings interest into an area that otherwise is losing it at this moment.
Absolutely.
So we've explored a few projects like that. We actually have some offers out to purchase some land, and my father's wholeheartedly in that zone right now.
Nice. That's exciting. I would like to hear more what's going to happen. And actually, since you mentioned the middle of the state, we in Southwest Florida, the Manufacturing Association, obviously from Florida, makes big push right now for the state of Florida to move manufacturing to what they call the spine of the state.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there is a lot of land. What are we going to use it for? And we want to encourage manufacturers to move their operations from other states, maybe even outside of the country, and move their operations here to Florida.
Well, I think one of the things that can inspire people is what we did. So my business was down in Naples.
Yeah.
We had 4 different locations in Naples in 2020. We had our commercial storefront was on Trade Center Way. We had our manufacturing plant on JNC. We had our headquarters on Janes Lane. We had a storage lot on Taylor Road. It's a nightmare. It was a nightmare to The reason that we had that was because at the time, Naples, Florida was not interested in allocating new industrial space. That wasn't the brand that they were after.
Yep.
There's no judgment as to whether or not they needed to do more or less, but that's ultimately the boat that we were in. And so what we found was that land was getting more expensive. Finding qualified labor was getting more expensive. As the cost of living in that area grew, people had to drive further and further. And so we ultimately made the decision to find space up here in Fort Myers, here off of Lico Road in Lee County. And we found that our labor pool was closer. We found that land was more affordable. We found actually, frankly, substantially more accommodating economic development office here that was really willing to help us grow and do whatever it took to grow our business here. I think that a lot of people in a lot of countries and other states can look at Florida for very much the same kind of thing. There's a lot of room in Florida for growth.
Lots of opportunities, and and Lee County is a very good partner of ours as well. And I think they have a clear vision of where they see Lee County growing to, so that's exciting.
Yeah, this whole area is growing like gangbusters right now.
Yeah.
We probably have 2 million square feet of industrial space that's going to be opening up here, and just in the upcoming blocks here.
I'm still amazed how
6 months to a year.
How quickly they're putting things together. It's unbelievable. Just yesterday was just like a forest. Now it's an industrial zone.
Right.
It's insane. How do you see? So you mentioned a few things about AHT, but do you see AHT will continue growing? Do you continue to innovate, or are you thinking we're going to branch out with a few other things? I mean, it seems like you're interested in both, maybe.
We're definitely branching out. I'm continuing to see the incursion of impact windows more and more into the hurricane protection space.
Yep.
They are passive. They affect the aesthetics of your home minimally, right? These are things that often people are looking for. They have huge drawbacks, which is certainly something that you don't normally hear about. Wind-driven rain being the single biggest one. They also cause a tremendous amount of insurance, a tremendous number of insurance claims after every storm, even if there's no damage. And these are things that we continue to see increase in our market, and it continues to draw away from other kinds of hurricane protection. So we're not blind to that, and we have to continue to innovate, and we have to continue to do things and offer things that impact windows don't, right? A level of privacy is a key thing. Screen products that we're working on offer that. They offer you the ability to close off an area so that if you're a snowbird, so to speak, you can leave your patio furniture outside and you can go up for the winter without having to worry about it being, worn or damaged by UV rays.
Yeah.
Security is also a big thing. We've been working on a bulletproof shutter for a while, not necessarily for this market, but for other markets. Things like that are what we need to do to continue to stay alive.
It's probably going to be an expensive shutter.
It is an expensive shutter. We've actually tested it. Actually, we've done some extensive testing on it, and it withstands just about every pistol shot that we've shot at it has worked. Rifle shots are a different story, and so there's going to necessarily be a level of protection that we're offering, and then a heightened level of protection once we get the rifle stuff figured out.
Yep.
But that's key. And then the other thing is really looking for other markets. Mm-hmm. So every company has to ask themselves, who's my ideal client? For AHT, it's my dealers. So I'm looking for dealers that are trying to maintain as small a footprint as possible, and they want to focus on installing. Yep. That's why I build the products here, and I can deliver it to their job sites, right? They can private label it, or we can use our own branding. But who are they targeting? They're targeting, for the most part, luxury residences. They're targeting people that have gone through a storm and have suffered from it, and so they're willing to make the expense. But year after year, we continue to leave a huge section of the population behind. These are people that are often referred to in this industry as the plywood demographic. These are people that when storms are coming, they run to Home Depot and they buy plywood to put on their
demographic?
Yeah.
That's the first time I hear it.
Yeah. It's not the most, it's not a compliment. It's not meant derogatorily either. But what it is meant to do is to refer to the way that these people are protecting their homes. Yeah. And this is the largest market that's out there. These are the people
you see it like all over, right?
Exactly. What happens before every storm? Home Depot, Lowe's, and all the other hardware stores run out of plywood because people are doing whatever they can to cover their windows. Yep. And so this is a market that nobody's pursued in the past because it's not seen as lucrative. What money are you going to make there? And so innovating new products that can get the cost down as much as possible, that can be DIY, that's, I think, what the future is for AHT right now. A huge portion of our dollars as far as development are going to develop products that are going to be available to the everyman, not just to the people that are bringing their 401k money to Southwest Florida. And we have one patent already filed for that. We're pursuing Florida Building Code on a new product that our goal, maybe not the immediate in the short term, but our long-term goal is to make that product available for $100 or less per window, installed in 5 minutes or less.
Oh, wow.
That's the goal, right? So if we can do something like that, now I can make this product available to everybody. Yep. They don't have to depend on plywood that isn't impact rated, that may or may not work, right? That doesn't have installation instructions associated with it, that requires cutting equipment to cut to the proper size that might get people hurt, that even if you do install it properly, you're going to be left in the dark. What happens if there's a fire in your home? Yeah. All of these things kind of come together, and we're putting this to the people that are at risk and the people that simply can't afford or unable to get hurricane protection.
Yep. Well, that's great, and so I think it's a solid business strategy.
Yeah. We're calling it the emergency screen.
The emergency screen.
The emergency screen. And it's available on my website now, though it doesn't have Florida Building Code approval yet. We're offering it in two different styles. One is made out of Kevlar. Yep. Obviously, it's going to be more expensive because it's a very expensive fiber, and the other one's made out of polypropylene, which is essentially trampoline fabric, but with a tighter weave.
It's strong, right? Polypropylene is pretty strong.
Polypropylene is very strong.
I think people might underestimate it. How
the idea is to make this durable, reusable for up to 10 years.
Yep.
And the ultimate goal is for the product to pay for itself. So right now, everybody that had their home built after 2003 required hurricane protection for a CO. So if your home was built in the last 22 years, the chances are
CO?
Certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
So if your home was built in the last 22 years, the chances are you already have some kind of hurricane protection, and your home is getting your homeowner's insurance is reduced because you have hurricane protection. There are huge benefits on the insurance side to get that.
Yeah, so if it's reduced by $500 or whatever, right?
Exactly. So if we can do something like that, and then now this DIY product can be permitted and installed, the people that need to use this kind of thing, the plywood demographic, so to speak,
Yep.
can now get this hurricane protection installed at a cost-effective way, and then within a few short years, it pays for itself through the deductions that you get on your homeowner's insurance.
Yep.
This is the ultimate goal, and I think it's going to start encapsulating more and more of the market. My goal is actually to sell it through the entire United States in any hurricane-prone area. Partner with somebody that can kind of help us distribute this stuff.
So next thing, I would like to ask you about, so we've been pretty unfortunate in the past few years with all those hurricanes, right? So how did it affect you here after, obviously Ian was, 2-3 years ago, then we got another big one just last year, Milton. So how did it affected your business, and like what can you tell us about it?
Sure. So hurricanes affect us in a variety of different ways. One of the key ways is that people like to think that hurricane shutter companies or impact window companies or anybody that's in this protection space begs or prays for hurricanes, and that can't be further from the truth. We're here to protect people and protect investments. When there is a hurricane, like Ian back in 2022, it upsets the area, the economy of an area, my workers, our ability to do business. The power outages and the internet outages are terrible. We don't get back into normal operation flow sometimes for up to 6 months.
I mean, we still, not everywhere we got. Right. Just look at Sanibel Island. My favorite beach, Barefoot Beach in the Bonita Springs, is still not recovered. I mean, it's still construction.
But more than anything else, people's focus shifts away from protecting their homes to rebuilding their homes. And so my market craters. People aren't interested in protecting something. Some are, but the large portion of the market goes back to their roofs, to their AC systems that got flooded, to replacing some windows that maybe got broken, to replacing drywall. So it's actually devastating for the hurricane protection industry whenever we have a hurricane that hits anywhere close to home. At the same time, that's why we're here, right? We're here to protect people, and we're here to help as much as possible. During those storms, we try to, in our local communities, we help put up shutters. We help anybody that is the elderly or that are unable to put up their shutters themselves. I've gone out and done it myself. I know a lot of my other employees do as well. Afterwards, we go out and participate in cleanup efforts. It's about being a part of the community.
Absolutely.
Aside from that, it changes the way that we have to approach shutters. Something that we've started to realize is that we have to provide an ulterior means of egress from a home, right? Hurricane screens are a huge part of that. Never leaving somebody trapped in their home. We learn after every storm. There have been cases where people were stuck inside because their shutters were down and they weren't able to get up. Right? These are panels that you have to put up yourself. And so the frame of your home shifts slightly and your front door now won't open. How do you get out? Right? Well, giving somebody the ability to cut their way out of their home is important. So we learn from every experience, we learn from every storm, we go back to the drawing board, and we actually design new products based on the feedback that we get from our customers. This is what we've seen, this is what we haven't.
The voice of the customer. Right?
Exactly. Right now, we're actually working on a couple different flood protection products. That seems to be the big thing that's happening right now. Everybody is concerned about flood protection, especially in the Fort Myers Beach area. So we're working on 2 products ourselves. We're also distributing 2 other products. One is called the Atlantic Shutter Flood Barrier, and one is called S.T.E.M Easy. We're currently selling those to our market direct to the consumer. They're very interesting products. They do a good job. But they're also limited in what they can do because they don't protect against hurricanes, right? And so it seems like you have to choose what you're protecting against. You're either protecting against hurricanes or you're protecting against floods.
That's a tough choice.
Tough choice. So
it's not a choice you want to make.
We're looking for something right now. We've actually developed something that's in testing that is going to be doing both. And so
there we go. I would go for both.
Learn from it. We've been in development for a while. I think back in 2021, we originally started working on something. We've gone back and forth a couple of times because you start developing something, you test it, it doesn't work. You either give up or you go back to the drawing board. And we've just decided to continuously go back to the drawing board. But now we're in the final stages of testing. And I hope that for either this hurricane season or next hurricane season, we're going to be ready to go and help people protect themselves.
Hopefully we're going to have an easy one this time, because
they're already calling for a normal to above normal. So it's not going to be a light season. It's either going to be the same that it's been, or it's going to be a little bit worse.
I'm not going to trust them ever. After Milton, I'm not going to trust them ever again, because Milton was first just a tropical storm, right? It was Sundays and Mondays, Category 5. Like, really?
It's unbelievable. But the world is unpredictable.
Yeah,
You just simply don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I would assume there was some kind of spike in demand eventually, maybe 6 months after the...
Yeah, so there will certainly be a spike in demand, and that it gets in the back of people's minds, and they start to see the advertisements on TV, they start to come out and meet manufacturers, see factories, and then that's when we start to see it. Realistically, 6 months to 8 months after a storm is when we'll see a spike.
But is it like a significant spike, or it's nothing you cannot handle?
It's about a 25% increase above what we would normally do, which is substantial, but it doesn't necessarily account for the drop of 30 to 40% that we see in the aftermath of a storm.
Oh, it's a roller coaster, but the thing is, you have some certain capacity on the production floor, right? The throughput. So if you suddenly have a 25% spike, the customers still want the same lead time.
Yeah.
So that's the question, like, how do you cope with the demand?
Well,
to meet the lead time, but at the same time to keep your employees sane, because you don't want to run them 7 days.
Well, the way that lead time works in the shutter industry is because we have a very strict permitting and building inspection department in Southwest Florida. Not just in Southwest Florida, in Florida State.
Yeah.
You need to have wind loads, you have to have engineering, you have to have installation instructions that get registered, and then you have to have a permit issued, and then inspections that follow afterwards. And so all of that takes time, which contributes to our ability to have an extended lead time that's still palatable to customers. Realistically, the ideal lead time for my industry is about 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
So when a product gets sold, it's going to be a structural product for a home. The business that sold it, whether it's my business or any other, is going to go and file for permits. It's going to take them a week to put together the paperwork, file that permit. It can take a week to 3 weeks to have that received, processed, and that permit to be issued before any work can be done.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, they should have placed their order with AHT so that we can start producing that product to their custom specifications. Right? When all that's done, we can then deliver to their job site. They can come pick it up, or we can deliver to their warehouse. And so 3 to 4 week lead time is actually ideal, because any shorter wouldn't necessarily help out my customers.
Yeah.
Right? And so that gives us a good target for where we want to hit as far as efficiencies.
I see.
We have to figure out 3 to 4 weeks with how much demand we have coming in the door means how many shifts, how many employees, how many people, what kind of throughput do I need.
How many shifts are you running?
We run one shift during the summer. When we get very busy, we'll sometimes go to a second shift. It's not super often, if I'm perfectly frank. But that's okay. That's the way that our industry works at the moment. I think if we can branch into other markets that are less seasonal, we might be able to use a slightly smaller space with utilizing time a little bit better shift-wise.
Yeah.
But that's going to take a little bit more growth from the company for us to get to.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know you're a big partner of our Southwest Florida Manufacturing Association, SRMA. Actually, you're a board member and president.
The vice president right now.
Vice president, sorry. So what is the impact that SRMA had on your business? And your involvement obviously is huge with SRMA, so it seems like it's a positive one, but I just want to hear about the impact that you think the SRMA is doing, maybe for your business and the region, our region here in Southwest Florida.
Our involvement with the SRMA started back in 2019. We reached out because we were interested in lean manufacturing even back then. So we reached out and we had an analysis. We talked about some of the visual inventory methods that we could follow, some of the visual management methods that we could follow. And ultimately, I was still getting my feet wet at the time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in our ability to continue down that path. We had a lot of other things that we needed to figure out.
Of course.
We kind of fell away a little bit from the SRMA, and there was something that was missing for us. We were missing this broader connection into the manufacturing community in Southwest Florida. We didn't have any way to figure out, if we needed somebody that was capable of providing a lead for stamping, metal stamping, or aluminum casting.
Yeah.
Who was I going to talk to? I had to talk to Google.
Yeah.
So that was something that we were missing, and it wasn't until I think it was 2022 that we were approached again by the SRMA, this time with a slightly different pitch. It was become part of a bigger community, not just how can you help yourself, it was how can you become a part of a bigger community, that I realized that this is really what my company needs to thrive.
Yeah.
So we became members, started attending factory tours. Factory tours for me are the single biggest takeaway that we get from the SRMA now. It allows us to network, but more than anything else, it allows us to see other successful companies, what they're doing and what makes them successful. Sometimes they don't even know what makes them successful, right? Who can explain what the secret sauce is?
Yeah.
But when you walk into somewhere and you feel the culture and you feel the efficiencies and you see them in everything that people do, you start to get an idea. What can I do differently? How can I do this better? We had a factory tour for Watts Water up the road here.
Yep.
And that was just after,
yeah.
This was after they'd just beaten us for Manufacturer of the Year in the Horizon Foundation. So I was curious. And so we went out to do the factory tour, and at the whole time I'm kind of grumbling a little bit at first and thinking, man, we probably deserved it. And after seeing their factory, I thought, oh my goodness, these guys deserved it. They have their stuff figured out. Their morning routine is clear and communicative. Everybody's on the same page. Their factory floor is clean. Their objectives are direct. They row together, so to speak. Everyone on the boat is rowing together. So
together and at the same speed.
And at the same speed and in their direction, right? So when you see somebody doing something like that, it's like, wow, what can I take back and apply in my factory? And you know, you can do that any number of times you go and see a new factory. So I try to do 5 to 7 different trips throughout the year to see different tours, different factories, either with the SRMA and without, but take something back each time. The other thing that I've gotten from the SRMA is, besides just the sense of community and the understanding of what's happening within Southwest Florida manufacturing, is the opportunities to do training sessions.
Yep.
The seminar that we did with Rami Goldratt the other day.
You enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it, and I've read the book. I was a big admirer of not just the family, but the theory of constraints. They bring a new kind of spin to what it means to write a book about learning, right? Normally it's boring. You're reading about figures and methods and strategies and snooze. But it's written in a novel form.
Yeah, you could relate, right?
You relate. Yeah. When I read the goal, my children are in the Scouts. I read the goal and the example about the line, right, with work in process inventory and production, it related to me directly because I could see, oh my goodness, I've actually seen this, and how can I apply this back home? So that's another great thing. We start to get these opportunities for how we can improve our business that I wouldn't otherwise have seen. We've already signed up for the upcoming seminar. Hopefully we're able to see it through. I know that we're still waiting for a couple other people to sign up, so anybody that's watching this podcast, I would encourage them to sign up because I think there's so much take-home value from it, right? There's obviously a cost that's associated with these things. There's time, there's opportunity cost, there's money. But the return on investment of simply improving one single process that's repeated thousands of times over the course of the year is enormous.
Exactly.
So that was one. The whole Shinka management training was something that it was near and dear to my heart. I used to work for NASA. You and I have discussed this a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe tell us a little about NASA.
So I worked for NASA from 2009 up and through 2019. I was actually a consultant for them while it was my first year here at AHT. I was a federal contractor, and I worked on missions like WFIRST, the Wide Field Infrared Space Telescope, MMS, Magnetospheric Multiscale, ISAT-2. And what I did during that time was, I was a programmer, I was a software tester. I got my master's degree from Johns Hopkins in computer and electrical engineering, and I transitioned into management and development. So when I did all of that, I had opportunities to travel around the world. Primarily throughout the United States, but one of the biggest opportunities that I had was to go to Japan to work with JAXA for this mission called XARM. Later on, they changed the mission name to CRISM.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I was going to go, there's a little island in the south called Tanegashima.
Okay.
And for better or worse, my wife was pregnant at the time, and I was set to travel on the day that my daughter was supposed to be born. And I tried to push it back, and we were unable to. And I said, I
gotta make a decision. Yeah.
I have to make a decision. So I decided not to go. And through that decision, computer just turned off. Through that decision, I lost my opportunity to go there. It was going to be for 6 weeks, and I was really hoping to see a different culture and understand how they approach everything. Because in my interactions with them through NASA, I mean, it was very professional, but it was the way that they approach engineering problems is very different. They, the way that NASA and my contractor mind would approach things was, let's just spend more money. Right? There's a solution, let's buy something commercial off the shelf and let's try to fix it. And their solution was always, no, first let's try to fix it in-house. Let's make something if we can. Let's use the resources that are available to us now rather than buying commercial off the shelf stuff or spending additional money to get this solved. So I really wanted to see it, and I lost that opportunity. Ultimately, I had to switch roles within that job, and I lost it. So when I was reading my monthly newsletter from the SRMA and I saw that this Shinka management training was coming up, I went back to that same thought and thought, I really want to see how they approach their problem solving.
Yeah.
It's not just the layout of the warehouses. It's not just the training that goes into people. It's the approach to the problem solving.
Much deeper than that.
It's Kaizen.
Right. Yep.
Right? And what goes into it? You know, some people like to say that it's because it's culturally built into them and the Japanese culture just kind of has these things there. But it's, honestly, I don't think it's true. I think it's there because it's there out of necessity, right? It's a population right now. It's a country in population decline on one side. It's an island with, and forgive me for saying this, very few natural resources. And they're well aware of that. And so what does that mean? That inspires people to be very careful with what they have. Frugality is seen there as a huge positive, not just on people, but also in businesses. You have to use what you have. You have to use it effectively. And so that's where this culture of breeding efficiency comes from.
Yeah.
Right? Let's not just run out there and buy something new. Let's be more efficient with what we have. Let's improve it. Let's get better. Let's learn from our mistakes so that we don't have to have this kind of commercialism where we just buy more and more and more and more and continue to get further into the hole. We talked a little bit about, while I was there, a little bit about the American propensity for just taking more debt and using credit to kind of get things out of the hole. That's completely antithesis to the way that they do things there. You know, the way of improving your business when there are issues is to get more efficient, not to spend more money. And so
said a lot of things, and we're definitely gonna get more into into the Shinka tour, the Japan tour.
Sure.
And it brought me to so how I even knew about this Shinka management group, the Lean Japan tour. Actually, one guy I used to work with, a consultant, he was one of, or I think he's still one of the consultants for Shinka management in North America. And he told me about this Lean Japan tour.
Yeah.
And he told me, I'm going to introduce you to Paul Smith.
Yeah.
So that's what it came through. But the guy who introduced me to Paul Smith, his name is Mike, he actually worked in Toyota. So he started working in Toyota in Kentucky. And every time he got promoted to a different, like supervisories and managerial role, they'll send him to Japan for training.
Wow.
And he'll tell me his training was, they'll just put like inside a factory, like on the shop floor, they'll put a square, a black square, you know, they'll put on the floor, and they'll tell him, that's your office, that's where you're going to stand, and you need to observe and write down projects for improvement.
Wow.
And he did it for 7 days straight. And he was telling me, like, it was so crazy. He'll stand there for like 12 hours, try to find ways, and then this sensei is going to come. The sensei is the coach. He's going to come, look at his writing, is like, not good enough, Mike, son, not good enough. Tomorrow is another day.
Wow.
And then he'll do it again and again and again. So that's the training.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the Shinka. But then you mentioned a few more things about Manufacturer of the Year. So actually SRMA is now going to be in partnership, obviously, with Lee County Horizon Foundation. SRMA is going to be leading the Manufacturer of the Year now. It's the first year we're doing it.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a group of examiners going to the floor and actually examining the manufacturers, evaluating. We're going to give the manufacturers an assessment, a really good assessment. We're basically copying it from what SFMA is doing it in South Florida. So we're all in it together, right?
Okay,
Florida makes. So SFMA, it's like Oscars over there now. Like, it's huge. I attended the last one. It was I think almost 1,000 people.
Good Lord.
And it's all manufacturers. They have all kinds of awards. It's like a red carpet. They're rolling a red carpet for the winners. It's unbelievable. Obviously, we're a long way.
Yeah, we're a ways from that.
Here, but that's the first year we're actually taking a role in directing this whole process, just manufacturing. I know they have industry awards, so they have other companies, but just for manufacturing part, we're taking a role in that. You also mentioned TOC, and you mentioned how companies, let's just spend more money. So TOC actually was based on the theories that was already there. Eli Goldratt has an article, I don't know if you read it, it's like 2 pages, but it's amazing. Standing on the shoulders of giants. You gotta read it.
Okay.
Standing on the shoulders of giants. And what he meant by giants is the giants of the industry. Dr. Deng, Taiichi Ono, these guys invented the Toyota production system, and basically lean. Right? Deming, Six Sigma. And he said, based on their theories and their practices and their implementation, I created the theory of constraints.
Well, yeah, theory of constraint and lean go hand in hand.
Exactly.
It comes down to the efficiencies and the adequate use of what you already have in your hands.
And the big thing is, you know how theory of constraint has 5 focusing steps? So you got to identify the constraint. And then the fourth one is actually elevate the constraint. So the fourth step is when you invest money.
Yeah.
You got to first identify, you have to identify the constraint, you have to exploit the constraint, you have to subordinate the system to the constraint, and then you elevate.
Right.
A lot of time companies, let's just spend money, and then they elevate. So they don't have stability, they didn't get to capability of the system, it's still chaos. If you invest in chaos, it's just going to create more chaos because you don't know where to invest. You don't know where the constraint is.
Let me give you an example, a shameful example from my own company, but it's absolutely true. Last year, we were trying to figure out how we could improve our production capabilities on one of our lines.
Yep.
That's the Hurricane screen production line. And so we're currently producing around 65 screens in a given week.
Yep.
Right? How can we produce more? Well, we went up there and we evaluated that it is taking us an inordinate amount of time to cut the screens. So what's happening as well, sometimes we have quality issues where we're not cutting the screens to the exact dimension. Right? 172.5 or 175.25 was something that it actually happened to us. We'd accidentally done that, and then it went out to the job site to get installed, and it was the wrong size. It needed to come back, and it caused some waste. So what did we do? We went and we found a machine on the market that is an automated cutting machine. It cost us over $200,000. Yep. We came here, we had the training, we did all that, and we only produced 3 additional screens over the course of the next 2 months per week. What in the world is happening?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until we started to look at where the bottlenecks are that we realized we'd invested into something that wasn't the bottleneck.
It's so common, Jamie. It's every time I see it, time and time again. So don't blame yourself.
But what I did was I increased the thing that wasn't limiting me in the first place. And so now we could start paying attention to what's actually limiting us.
And actually, you know what's unique in your situation? You understand it and you realize that many times companies, they don't even think that the problem is with the decision-making process where they
start to get mad at the operators.
Yeah, exactly.
You start to say the stupid machine doesn't work.
I worked at a company where, and usually many times companies invest somewhere upstream, like the first process upstream. And basically in this company they were doing like those fridges for bars, like industrial big fridges. Where was it? In Pennsylvania. I can't remember the town name. I think Brookfield, Pennsylvania. Anyway, you don't know. It's like 1,000 people, so many small towns. But anyway, worked there with a manufacturer doing some problem-solving training. It was a while ago. And the problem-solving training, we got to pick some projects. So the way the training goes, you don't just do all theory in class. You actually do some theory in class, but then you go and apply to actual problems on the shop floor. So we're asking them, the plant manager, to select us a couple problems. He said, the team will select one. I know one problem for sure. You got to help me with the metal sheet cutting operation. Sure. We invested $2 million. We got this sophisticated equipment, laser cutting, and it's spitting out the sheets, but for some reason, I'm not pushing more stuff out of the door. It's really a problem. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Is it really a problem? So we're going on the shop floor, and there is so much sheet metal cut, the poor operator can't keep up.
Your work in process inventory is through the roof.
Yeah, can't keep up with the machine, and they keep dumping these sheets to the next operation. The next operation, you see a mountain of inventory in there, and they're asking us to improve the sheet cutting operation.
Right.
There is a problem somewhere there. So it's odd, right?
So I think to your point, I think through the SRMA and through some of the connections that we've made, it starts to give me the tools for evaluating.
Yep.
Right, to figuring out where is the actual problem. This is something we used to do at NASA. Was we would have Tiger teams, right? So there they have a strong culture of quality, and the problem-solving skills that they would impart into their employees were huge, were amazing, right? Because you have a culture where if you're putting a human being into space, you cannot cut corners.
No.
Errors cannot be ignored.
Yep.
Quality problems can't go on to the next area. That's something that I found that in the traditional manufacturing spaces is allowed. It's okay because what we're more concerned about is production at all costs.
Yep.
Let's get it out the door.
Let's get it out of the door, forget about everything else.
Right? But it's short-sighted because what will happen is that has to come back, and a product that comes back now costs 10 times more than getting it right in the first place. Because you have to warranty it, you have reputation damage, you have the additional expense of the trucking, of the additional work, of that dealer now losing faith in you.
Exactly. Yep. No, you hit the nail on the head. And yes, I think for some reason manufacturers are not really great at problem solving, or maybe not even saying this way, not great into getting to the root cause of the problem. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you think we fixed the problem, we actually fixed just some of the effects. Yeah. But we didn't get to the root cause to eliminate the problem altogether. And it's amazing that you have this problem-solving mindset, and I guess NASA was a great experience for you. Yeah. That's where some of it is coming from. And then you recognize SRMA can help you to not only to see other facilities and compare kind of industry best practices, but also give you the tools in forms of TOC or Lean or whatever else. You can ask SRMA, what else do you have? Right.
One of the things that we're trying to implement right now is the and-on cord. Right.
That's from Shinka?
That's from Shinka.
That was actually my next question. So what did you bring back?
So when we came back, I don't actually have it on me here, but the flight back was a long flight. It was like 22 hours of, and I'm scribbling notes. If anybody will look on LinkedIn, there's a bunch of photos of us during the tour and all that stuff.
Nice
look
photos.
At every single one of me in the classroom, and I'm taking notes.
So yeah,
I really exactly because I wanted to capture as much as possible, and if I just keep it in here, then it's kind of muddying up everything else. So JD and I laid out an implementation plan, building a team. What were the big things, the low-hanging fruit that we could do to essentially start shifting the culture? There's a couple things that we need to do gradually, and there's a couple things that we want to do all at once, right? A shock to the nervous system. One of those things is an and-on cord, which is the idea that at any moment, somebody can pull this cord, which turns on a light or turns on a siren or does something else. In my case, it's just somebody raising their hand. That stops the entire manufacturing floor. Why? This is something that is against all of our current strategies or our previous strategies of how we wanted to produce. We always wanted to be producing something. I want to say I'm producing 300 shutters a week.
Got to be busy.
Right. And we got to be busy. We always have to be busy. But what happens when you get a manufacturing problem or a quality problem or a material problem, right? Should that be allowed to go to that next phase? Does it go to the next station? Well, in the past we're going to do a quality check at the end, and we'll make sure that we catch it. Most of the time we do, but not every time. And what happens now that resolving that quality problem takes a longer time? Right? What the and-on cord does is it stops all production, and it starts the problem solving or root cause analysis.
Yep.
So if you've got an issue, they pull this cord, and then a manager, the person that really knows the area best, is supposed to come over and start analyzing what is going on here. What can we fix? Is this a showstopper for everything else? Right? In the best case scenario, this was a short, isolated incident that can be fixed and we move on. In a worst case scenario, this is a systemic error that needs to halt production for everything. Yep. We saw this live because there was actually a death at one of the Toyota, I think Tier 1 suppliers while we were over there, and it shut down the entire Toyota production plant. Everything stopped. We were at a Tier 2 production.
What do you mean you saw it live?
We saw it. We didn't see the death live. What we saw was we were at Tier 2 manufacturing facility, and they actually stopped production because their customers at the Tier 1 and at the Toyota final assembly plant were no longer working. So the entire process halted because
So the
they
death
had an
actually
incident.
happened like not too long ago?
It happened a day before we toured the Suzaki plant. And, you know, you would think, well, everybody else is going to keep producing and we're going to see how we can make up for this lack in productivity. But what they actually did is they said they're going to halt everything because we need to get to the bottom root cause of what happened here so that this never, ever happens again.
So what happened?
There was a recurrence of some event that had been a close call in the past, and this time led to a death. I believe it was either a fire or a small explosion. It's terrible.
That is horrible, yeah.
And it also shows the approach that Toyota brings to safety, where when something like this happens, it doesn't just get skirted aside. They stop a billion-dollar operation for one human life to figure out why it happens, and so that never happens again, because that human's life was more important than their productivity. It's truly admirable and it's very impressive.
It's a great perspective.
We also brought dashboards. So we've got new dashboards that are outside. The idea.
I'm gonna go and take a look.
So we've got the dashboards have been purchased. They're in their areas now. We're talking about what metrics go there. The idea being we need to have less meetings, but we need to improve our communication. So I want to have more effective communication with less meetings. And that's actually something that we saw when we toured Metal One Isuzu. They have Metal One Isuzu was one of they're metal coil manufacturers, and so they produce for the industry as well. And they have a giant dashboard that they approach every single morning, and everybody's on the same page. By the end of that 15-minute meeting, everyone is on the same page about what the goals are for that day, what are the metrics from the previous few days, what are they supposed to do? And then the managers, when they come and view, they take the Gemba approach. They actually go down into the workspace. Rather than going to a conference room and talking with people, they go and see, right? Let's look at the dashboard that's by the production facility. How are you guys doing, right? With my own eyes. So we took a piece of that, and rather than I have meetings all day, let's start reducing those meetings. Let's get people back to work. And what are the meetings supposed to be for? It's supposed to be to track issues. It's supposed to be to communicate so that everybody's on the same page. Well, we can do that by using space rather than time. Better use, more effective.
Big on visual signals, right?
Visual signals is huge. Exactly.
Communicate without words, right?
Hats are another one. So these things, just visual signals. Something as easy as a different colored helmet or a different colored hat can signify a new employee. Why a new employee? Because a new employee is bound to make mistakes. That's just part of it. That's experience. Right? And so when you're outside, you don't want to see a collection of red hats in an area, because that might mean that's an area where you're going to have a quality problem, right? Or maybe you want to see a red hat next to a black hat, which could mean you've got somebody experienced with somebody inexperienced. Those are the kinds of things that as a manager, instantly you see and now you know, right? You don't have to recognize the face. You can be far off. So there's a lot that we can learn.
That's amazing.
And as we go, we're going to start implementing more. My implementation plan is about 6 steps. We're just starting to scrape the second step right now, which is building teams, right? So the building teams is going to go through this process of the slow implementation.
Like continuous improvement teams, problem-solving teams, or?
Well, one is the building teams that it's the production team. So we're going to build a production team with the Anden flags and the problem-solving groups need to have heads, people that actually know what to do. One of the interesting caveats of the Anden flag is that the employee that pulls the cord is not supposed to fix their own problem. Well, because you need a subject matter expert to come in. You caused the problem or you identified the problem, but you need somebody else that has a wider kind of system approach.
I would always say you need some cross-functional, cross-functional team. So it's not from the same department, you have some.
And so those people need to be identified. Those people need to be identified. They need to know what their role is. They need to be trained to do it. So that takes time. So that's one. The production team where we can have that kind of capability. But on the other side, I need buy-in from management if we're going to make these changes.
Exactly. Buy-in and go, that's the first thing. You got to get buy-in.
So when I was there, when I was in Japan with the Shinka tour, one of the things that they were harping on was how important it is to have management involved in these training opportunities. So I originally thought that this was going to be better suited for operational people, right? I'm going to send as many operational people as I can because they're the ones that are actually going to be doing it. But if they're doing it and management is fighting them the whole time to say, no, this isn't efficient because management doesn't really understand, right? They haven't had that kind of paradigm shift in their brains yet, then they're going to fight it the whole time. So it really does need to start with management. You need to start at the top and start accepting the ideas that this is a better way of doing it, right? Then public or large-scale adoption from the rest of your crew is possible, but only after you get the decision makers on board. So that's what we're working on.
And I like how you said, what are the low-hanging fruits and quick wins? Because the quick wins are so important. When people see that there's some quick wins, that's also how you're getting the buy-in.
You know what everybody, the introduction that everybody really liked for the dashboards was, all right, guys, we're going to do dashboards, and you are going to have more work, and you're going to have to put this in, you're going to have to maintain it daily, and it's like, oh, you get some rolling eyes. But now you don't have to have that hour meeting. Okay, now I'm on board, right? And so those little wins, you're saving, it'll take you 15 minutes to update the dashboard daily, right? Yeah. But now you don't have to have that hour meeting where you were unproductive. Now the rest of your team doesn't ask you as many questions or interrupt you as constantly because all they can just go look at the dashboard. So those things are already started, and they're already starting to convert people over to the ideas.
Got it. So you said JD, right?
Jamie Dominguez.
Yeah, Jamie Dominguez. What is he saying?
So
Did he enjoy himself there?
Oh, he enjoyed it. I'm not going to exaggerate it. It was a life-changing trip for a variety of reasons. We met some extraordinary people. A huge part of the group was actually the Amazon device team from Lab 126 or 126.
Okay.
They're the quality control designers, operational people from Amazon devices.
Okay.
And so having their expertise.
And some networking capabilities.
Oh, yeah. And we had the opportunity to talk to them, but also pick their brains about what they do. I mean, we're talking about a relatively small manufacturing facility in Fort Myers, Florida, versus a behemoth in China that's doing things that are seen worldwide, right? And how these concepts kind of apply to two different places was mind-blowing. Su Ling was one of the fellow tour goers. She was able to talk to me about some of the things that they do at Amazon and how she would apply it and how maybe I wanted to think about my things, right?
Wow. Okay, so that's the part we didn't talk about, the connections that you make during the tour.
Yeah, those connections were great. JD and I both made the connections. I'm still in contact with some of the guys. The quality control manager, one of the quality control managers at Amazon Devices. Actually, we were texting this morning photos from the trip.
Okay.
Still exchanging those things because it was eye-opening for all of us. It was a different approach. It was a different way of doing business, and we could all learn from it, no matter what skill you're at. But it was also culturally. We got to see different parts of Japan.
Yeah.
We got to experience the foods. We got to experience the people. We got to get just a small glimpse of what it's like to be there, and compare that to what the American life is like, or what the Chinese life is like. Those things you take with you, right? I felt that Japan. One of the reasons that I love Southwest Florida is because of the relative feeling of safety. Right? I'm an immigrant to the United States. Yep. I've lived throughout a bunch of different places in the U.S. Naples and Fort Myers are the place where I feel safest. I never have to look over my shoulder. I feel home, right? I feel it's safe here. I had that same kind of feeling in Japan.
Oh, really?
I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I went out one night, I couldn't sleep because we're 13 hours shifted from our schedule.
A little bit of a different time.
And I could walk out at night at 11 o'clock at night in the most populated city in the world without any concern for my safety.
Tokyo? It was Tokyo. Okay.
Yeah, so we were there for a couple of nights. 37 million people, and you don't hear horns honking. You don't see trash on the streets. There's not this feeling. Yeah. I could see myself living there. I really, really enjoyed my time.
So you're going to go again, it seems like.
I'm certainly going to go again. And it's probably going to be part of this continuing trend for us about continuous improvement, because there's so much more for us to learn. I'm not going to get everything out of one trip. I don't know if it's going to be with Shinka or it's going to be with somebody else, but as far as continuing this lean journey, I'm going to have to go back, and I'm probably going to have to take more of my management team to learn more about what goes into there. This time we did operations, and we did myself as the president, but sales, financing, other operational roles, they're big there on, it's not human resources, it's human assets. How can we turn people into human assets?
That's what they say?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Well, it's because when you're running out of working age people,
Yeah.
what do? Well, you invest in them more. You don't just try to create new positions or go to AI or do those things. You make it so that these people want to be there.
Yeah.
And that they have a safe space to work in, and that they want the company to grow. Right? There's a certain amount of pride in it, and that's what the human asset idea comes about from. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that we have to learn here, and it's not just in operations. It's really on the whole approach to the culture of the business.
But at the same time, it's not AI, but I'm sure they integrate a lot of technology into their production, right?
Yeah, we toured Nissan, and they do use AI. They use a lot of machinery. They use robotics.
Yeah.
But there is a human role in every single thing that they do. That human role is very important because at the end of the day, these are products that are going to be used by humans. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be an integral part of how they want, and people need to be involved in those lines. What they're using right now AI for and technology is to ensure quality.
Yeah.
Right? But there's always a human operator there. But that human operator is useful. He's not just watching.
So, it's funny you said quality because I just had my previous show was with Charles Murray. I don't know if he's a manufacturer in Sarasota.
I haven't seen that one yet. I saw the first one with Rami.
Yeah. No, not the podcast. I don't know if you know him or not,
No.
but he's fascinating story what he does. So he started from all kinds of packaging equipment, but now he's also doing products. Mm-hmm. But he's integrating AI into his processes a lot. And the one thing he said about AI is a quality control. It's the biggest thing is quality control. And then the one thing you said with Nissan, quality control. It's so true.
Yeah.
That's why it was kind of interesting. He mentioned quality control.
Yeah, quality control is huge. And one of the things that I found that quality control isn't a step in the process. It's an integral part of the process. Every step of manufacturing has its quality.
Yep.
And if you do that, then you don't have to have a massive quality effort at the end. You don't have to do 20% rejection rate of the finished part because that's wasteful. But if you've done it throughout the whole process, you get to the end and you just check the last functionality of something, and then you know that it's had all of these checks as you went around. Really, again, eye-opening experience. Just a completely different way of doing business and approaching business.
So would you recommend to our other manufacturing members, members, to go and attend Shinka management?
I would recommend everybody.
Japan tour.
Everybody that's interested in improving their operations needs to go. Mm-hmm. Ahí está la cámara.
That's okay. We'll fix it. No problem.
No. That's okay.
Yeah, we'll remove it. It's not a big deal.
Oh, we can repeat that. So everybody that's interested in improving their processes, that's interested in improving the way that they manufacture, that's interested in improving their company culture,
yep,
I think could stand. It doesn't necessarily have to be lean. I know that this could be an expensive proposition for somebody to take some of the more important people from the business and send them for 10 days to Japan and have to pay money and for flights and all those things. So it's not right for everybody. But the experience of going out there and seeing something new, if you have the opportunity to do Shinka, absolutely do it. 100%. They have my referral, my recommendation for absolutely everybody that has the means and the ability to do it. But if you don't have the means and the ability to do it, get out and see a factory, right? Get out and see somebody that is good at what they do. Yep. That's where the SRMA comes in. For a couple $100 a year, you have access to a bunch of different factory tours with people that are doing things well, that have a different kind of culture, that have already taken to that problem solving. They might be in a different part of their development than what you are, but you can learn there. And for the most part, I've come to realize that the people that are doing these things, that are hosting these tours like myself, they want to share their experiences. And they want to share their ideas because they're proud, but because they care about the economy as a whole. Right? I think too often we think that people are very selfish or secretive about the things that they're doing and they don't want to share anything. But I want there to be healthy competition because that's good for the market.
Exactly.
Because if I can learn something and I can push the hurricane protection industry further forward and through sharing that with other people, then I think my business is going to be better in the long run.
Absolutely.
And so, I recommend Shinka wholeheartedly. But not only that, I recommend people get off of their butts and get to tour facilities and start looking at what other people are doing and improve their own operations.
Yeah, join our manufacturing associations, get involved, go on tours, right? That's the message.
Yeah, I think the tours, it maybe even isn't the best word for it, because I think it has a certain connotation of not working.
Yeah.
Right? A tour is something you do on vacation.
Bring your notepad.
Yeah, but bring your notepad, listen to what they're saying.
Yep.
I've learned so much from it.
Well, thank you, Jamie. It was a pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine.
And looking forward to hearing stories about AHT growth. I think you really working with the community, working with our association, and we're here to keep living and succeeding together and hearing your story.
Thank you so much, Pavel.
Really, anything you need.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there we go.